Hi, my name is Arthur Mrozowski, and I'm part of Silicon Hill Venture, which is something that I've done for last about 12 years. Came from Poland in 1982. Spent about 35 years in Silicon Valley doing startups. Originated as a software engineer and just kind of learned the trade. And I'm greatly appreciated to be part of the Valley, part of this group, and part of the history that we've been making since 1980 something. I mean, a lot of people were part of the first wave of innovation, which was with the Fairchild, but I kind of caught up in a game starting with the personal computer. But anyways, enough about me. We have a wonderful panel today to talk about the future in AI and emerging technologies. So I will start with Aaron to introduce every panelist would introduce themselves, like talk about what it is that they do, and then we'll go into the questions. Aaron?
Great, thanks, Arthur. Hi, Aaron Travis, co-founder and CEO of Karus, which is an AI engine for auto lending. My background, first half was traditional investment banking, and in the second half, a series of startups, all around using predictive technologies to make the capital markets more efficient. Is how I describe it, with the first foray at a one of the kind of OG ML AI more venture style focused startup called Circle Up. But last sort of 5 to 8 years have been more focused on consumer credit. So think about taking all this data and predicting defaults, basically extending credit, pricing credit, with the current project being focused, as I said, on auto lending. And I'll just say a couple other things that kind of stood out to me and that might be useful for you to know. Data integrity, which I think we all understand why that is. It's so important. And in consumer lending, there are certain sort of workflows and mechanics that would just bore you to hear them, where data integrity is a particular problem. Exclusive data sets, super important. We heard that earlier. And Karus has a partnership with the Bloomberg for the auto securitization markets. I can talk a little bit more about that. But then optimization and operating system, two words that we use very often. We're young, we are a startup. We went to market last year. We have 10 enterprise customers that are using our AI lending tools, but it is around optimization and it is an operating system. And there does need to be sort of humans keeping an eye on this. So whether it's our securitization cash flow forecasting or the underwriting cash flow forecasting, the sort of black box concept does not work here, because in the financial markets, the reality of it is if you could really predict where things are going to go, whether that's credit or equities or venture or private equity, I probably wouldn't be up here talking to you. Probably the best example would be Renaissance Technologies, but that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, thanks. Rayne?
Sure. Rayne Stenberg, CEO and founder of Arca. We're a digital asset manager focused on cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology. Prior to this, I co-founded the ETF company Wisdom Tree in the early 2000s. We see a lot of parallels between crypto, digital assets, and the financial innovations of something like ETFs. So disrupting financial services is particularly challenging to do in a regulatory sense. There's a lot of intersection between artificial intelligence and digital assets. We'll go into that in a minute, but that's me briefly.
Thank you. Duncan?
Good morning. Duncan Logan. I'm the CEO of 9Zero. The problem we're solving is really all focused around climate change. There is no Silicon Valley for climate. And for such a large sector, we're going to build 100 physical and digital Silicon Valleys around the world to pull together all the companies working on climate. My previous company was a company called Rocket Space, which I started in 2011. We raised 350 million into Rocket Space. And it feels very similar. In 2011, we were just getting our hands on the iPhone. In Rocket Space, we had a 7-person company called Uber. We had a small company called Spotify. We had a 1-person company called Flexport. These were all the unicorns which came out through the last decade. And it really feels like with AI, we're right at that space again, where there's this new leap forward in technology, and it's just going to be interesting to see how we use that technology for the better of everyone.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Khai Pham. My background, I have an MD and PhD in AI from Sorbonne University. I've been in AI for 30 years. Started my first AI company in Silicon Valley. It was in fintech at that time because life science is not what it is today. The early investors did 40 time, had the best VC over there, great exit. Now my second AI company is focusing on life science, and I'm working mainly on large reasoning model and not just language model that I will explain a little bit further, to generate human digital cell clone for drug R&D. So you can do simulation on drugs.
Well, thanks, Kaya. And then actually talking about this large model and then your new acronym, which is LRM. So can you explain to us how is that? I mean, I understand that it's the way that the human brain actually functions, that you're trying to mimic utilizing your algorithms in your new technology. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and the actual usages of it?
Yeah, so, you know, we have an internal representation about the world. And this internal representation is not just about words. So when you have a large language model, you represent the language. How many times you are looking for a word, right, to express what you mean. It means that you do not only think with words. So your internal representation is what we call the reasoning model. So what we do is to reproduce this internal reasoning model that people have in different disciplines. It can be finance, it can be biology, and so on. So until now, you maybe not hear much about reasoning AI because of the limitation of the existing approach where you can have only one type of reasoning. And we break this limit by having an AI where we can have any type of reasoning within the same system, because human, we reason by analogy, by constraint, by probability, by logic, etc. So we don't think only in one way. So a lot of time, yeah, people talk about AI/ML. It's mainly ML, which great, but there is another AI that is focusing on the intelligence, which means it has to process not data, but knowledge, and then using that to do the reasoning to make rational decision.
Well, thanks, Kai. And I would like to ask, because we have actually, the panel is kind of divided into different types of the future AI implementations. I think Kai has a really interesting approach of into the life science and actually intrinsics on how that technology is working. And I understand Duncan came here just like myself many years ago. I founded the Rocket Space and had $700 in his pocket when he came here. I had $650 less, but then I had a little bit of a lead with you. But jokes on the side, right now you switched over. You still own that building in this downtown San Francisco, and we know that WeWork model kind of didn't quite work out, but you were very, very successful at what it is that you did, and now you're stepping into the environmental AI. Can you tell us more about, you know, what your vision into AI and environment is?
Well, any entrepreneur, when you're starting a company, you kind of look at where the puck's moving for where the opportunity is going to be. And I think climate in the next 2 or 3 years is going to be an all-encompassing problem that everyone is set to solve on. I don't think many people know, but the last 12 months we have had, so from last June, last July, last August, last September, are the hottest months ever on record for each of those months. So climate is getting out of control on an exponential way. It is not yet the #1 topic on everyone's mind in this election. It will be about immigration or reproductive rights. But the next election, climate is going to be the #1 item. It is on an exponential curve of going wrong. Every company is a climate company. either on the right side of climate or on the wrong side of climate. But I think the pace at which companies are going to have to all work together to solve climate problems is only going to pick up from here. So my estimation is in the next 2 or 3 years, the climate problem is really going to be in front of us. I mean, just today, there's a dam about to fail in Minnesota. It's not even on the front page of the news. You know, we just had 1,500 people die at the Hajj in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't even make the news. The climate is going seriously wrong. So I am incredibly encouraged that we will solve this problem, and that AI is going to be an enormous enabler of solving climate change. And actually, at 9.0, when we look at the companies who are moving into 9.0 already, most of them are AI companies.
Well, thanks, Duncan. So let's move on to Rayne. Rayne, one of the issues in general with AI is lack of governance, and then you're dealing with a lot of data sets, and then I understand that you're trying to ahead of its time to create a certain AI data protection that enables that future regulators to kind of mimic what it is that you're trying to do right now. So tell us more about what it is that you do, and then specifically if you can touch the aspect of the data governance.
Yes. Again, we're asset managers focused on digital assets, which are generally seen as blockchain and crypto. There's a huge intersection between AI and digital assets. Because broadly speaking, what people don't really understand about digital assets or crypto is it's a decentralized governance mechanism or decentralized decision-making tool. So people get confused where it kind of intersects with finance and things like that. It's not really about that. It's how large groups of people or large groups of entities make decisions when they're not geographically co-located. So how do you, and when you don't necessarily have trust between them and things like that. So there's a lot of projects in the digital asset space, and this is all very rudimentary, but how you make decentralized decision-making processes in AI. So this works on decentralized training of language models, decentralized access to compute, decentralized access to power, and how you create incentive models that reward the best outcomes for these things. So there's a lot of concerns in the AI world that a lot of these resources are being concentrated in, mega corporations, a control issue, and who's really going to own all of these resources. Digital assets and the democratization of finance and access to these resources very much aligns with this. And then you can go even further down. So we're talking about the composability of financial products, smart contracts. Jeremiah, when he was talking about agents making buying and selling decisions, this fits right into the composability of digital assets. So that's what we're working on. We're working on the efficient allocation of capital to good projects in that. There's a lot of problems in digital assets with that, regulatory, legal, and we're trying to make it safe for really sophisticated investors to get exposure to those type of projects and help enable that digital transformation.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Rayne. And Aaron, so recently you're in a business, financial businesses. So you've been doing that for many, many years. Now your new project is called Karus AI. Very good name. And then basically you try to match the buyers and the financiers that could help them out to finance the cars. And I just like recently, like a couple of days ago, I saw that there was like 15,000 dealerships in the United States that they went down because of cyber attack. And then you're creating this AI software that hopefully you will, somehow block those attacks off, right? And how are you going to defend yourself with your software in the future using AI?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I mean, Karus is not really a cybersecurity company. However, we spend a lot of time on that data integrity that I mentioned earlier, so things around fraud. The one part of auto lending in the consumer credit world that's so unique is that the vast majority of auto loans are done at the dealer. I'm sure many of you have done that before yourselves. It's certainly extremely convenient, but the workflows are much different. And so all the major lenders, whether you're talking about Chase, Cap One, Ally, all the way down to smaller credit unions, there's a bunch of specialty finance companies, including hedge funds and private equity now. Asset-based lending and private credit is kind of a very fast-growing part of the capital markets. But getting back to your question and the topic at hand, those dealers all went dark. Mm-hmm. And so essentially, from Karus's perspective, what we've built is using predictive models and AI, not just for the credit piece, but for the validation, especially around income where you get gamed a lot. And then also these the dealers themselves, they're what's called their finance and insurance departments, their F&I departments, highly compensated, actually very skilled. I've spent a lot of time with these folks. And some of these underwriting rooms at these dealers will look like a Wall Street trading desk. And they're on the phones talking to lenders. They have their communication portals, but they're also really smart, and they find what are really sort of holes in the underwriting process. Mm-hmm. And the more automated the process becomes and the more that we rely on predictive technologies, the easier that is to exploit, which is kind of the flip side of doing this, which is something that we spend a lot of time at Karus on. But this is actually really interesting. These dealers, this is a very disruptive event, because now all the lenders couldn't get the data. Karus couldn't get the data. The lenders are our customers, so we optimize their lending through our predictive models, but they couldn't get the data. So the dealers essentially had to extend those loans out to all these customers over the past few days. I'm not sure where it stands exactly today, but it's a good example of when throughout the value chain, if the data can't be served, it can be a hugely disruptive. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm sure that a bunch of these dealer groups and these dealers are on with their banks saying that they need to extend a credit line or a corporate credit line that they have. But it's a bit of a cat and mouse game, cybersecurity for everyone. It's no different in auto lending.
But what I'm saying, that your platform, like seeing what you saw a couple of days ago, unraveling, what are you trying to actually improve your software to avoid those kind of a potential pitfalls? Or
so we have our own cybersecurity plan in place as Karus, that delivering these tools to lenders and actually dealers, because dealers are prolific lenders themselves on purpose. In this case, it's not on purpose, So the short answer to that is yes. And when you talk about AI, and when you talk about AI and you talk about instituting it deeper and deeper into massive functions like auto lending or mortgages, credit markets, as you get deeper in there, anything that happens in the value chain of how the data is delivered or the data integrity can really have unintended consequences.
Oh, thanks. So I just wanted to summarize whatever it is that we're all individual panelists are thinking about the AI in general, because AI is really old, right? I mean, it's about 50 or 60 years old. Alan Turing was the one that created this whole AI concept, and that's been in the 60s or quite a long time ago. But what we have right now is the convergence of all of the necessary elements to the algorithms that were designed in the 50s to actually make things happen. So the fast data, large amounts of data, the GPUs, the LMUs, whatever they're called right now. And there's a number of different technologies now in the Valley that it's being developed. And some of them is OpenAI, like hosted by Microsoft, which would seem to have like one of the better data sets because they're based on the wiki page, curated data set, so it doesn't necessarily answers to eat the rocks like the Google ones, even though that they had a larger data set. But what I'm trying to say is that with all those things that are happening here with the semiconductors like NVIDIA or just upcoming stars like the Grok or Konami, what are you guys are thinking in terms of the Valley? What's the biggest biggest game changer in each one of your panelists' view? What's going to be the future light that you think in terms of convergence into the something that is going to stick? Because we know that there's $1 trillion helicoptered into San Francisco right now, right? And then it's going to be a nice bubble, but there's going to be some really good companies that are going to come out of it. So what do you think, Khai? What's your prediction there?
Yeah, so I'm going to, of course, zoom in the domain that I know. So at Thinking Node Live, we are focusing on doing human cell simulation. And in any big industry like aviation, automobile, you have to have a digital model to do simulation to de-risk that. You don't have that in pharmaceutical industry and biology. So we bring this new approach using AI to do simulation. So I think one of the things that is important is how AI can help us to, and this is the vision of the company, is to clone biology digitally. So then we can really do simulation. So it's not far away. We already have customers. We already work with different pharma companies and to identify new target, to compare drugs and so on. So the future for me is really kind of replicating the real world into a digital world and using AI to understand and even to create the future from there.
Duncan?
I think we're still super early. We see this in every wave of technology. The first thing we do is use the new technology to do things that we used to do before that technology existed. So I think we're seeing lots of that definitely in medical and data and music and all these sort of things. I think what's going to be really interesting is what are the new things we never did before that AI enables. And if I knew what that was, I'd be an investor. It's too early to spot, but that's what I'm most excited about. But one final thing I'll just say from a climate perspective, AI uses a lot of energy. For the first time, the US has been pretty much energy flat for the last decade. And for the first time, some states are predicting a compound growth rate of 7% just because of AI data centers. The good news is that last year, 2023, 87% of all net new energy in the world was sustainable energy, was green energy. Mm-hmm. So, there are a lot of good things happening in climate already. Yeah, I don't have a good answer to your question.
Well, nobody really does. I mean, we're just living it right now. But what do you think, Rayne? What makes you like really excited about what it is that you have and like from what you have, but what do you think that?
Sure. It's obvious that AI is a transformative technology that's going to impact many aspects of life. So that is clear. I think what we've seen kind of on a broader societal problem is this concentration of wealth, power becoming in a more narrow kind of distributed band. It seems like, in my mind, AI would accelerate that. So this intersection of digital assets, distributed decision-making, how you create better incentives in distributed networks seems to be a very important type of project when you have this kind of great concentrating power going on. An interesting project, one that we're invested in, is something called BitTensor. The token is Tau. And this is how you work on creating models that reward open source AI and to create better and better models that are distributed and known by everybody, or at least everybody on that network. So in this great consolidating force, it seems to me that we're going to need some balancing things if we're not going to get just one very, very wealthy person at the end owning everything. Perhaps some of this will devolve more equitably. So that's the stuff that's interesting to me.
Aaron, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think what's going to be right around the corner and extremely exciting is how distributed ledgers and the fungibility of assets ties into credit and now we're all kind of focused on money and alternatives of money. And Rayne's probably loving hearing this, but I think that we're barreling towards, with I making the credit decisions, pricing the credit so that the capital markets have confidence that it's been priced correctly and the credit risk assessment is correct. And now you have this world where when I go buy a cup of coffee, everything's digital. I might use my home equity loan for that $3. And because this is done through the blockchain, or it's done through a distributed ledger, it's immutable, it's cost efficient, and it can tie into what all my liquidity sources are. And then you have this, it should create the flexibility on the capital market side. So if I'm a bank, or if I'm a private equity firm, or I'm an insurance company, a pension plan, a lot of these sort of really expensive third-party intermediaries, what I'm describing now, how it happens, who make a lot of money to be in the middle there, can get cut out. And so I think that'll be a big boon for consumers, and don't know how much it helps with sort of the inequality of wealth effect, but it's probably a good thing in general.
Well, thanks. Khai, the question for you, like on the human beings, like on the human being level, like, are you personally afraid that, you live in Phoenix, Arizona, and then it's 110-degree temperature, and all of a sudden your smart home intentionally turns off the AC? Do you think that that's going to happen or not? Well, my simple question is this: are you afraid of AI actually overtaking overtaking humans in general?
Yeah, I'm not afraid because it's inevitable. What I mean is Homo sapiens we are at the top of the pyramid right now, but there is no reason based on the evolution principle we will stay that way. So for me, I just call that the Homo digitalis or whatever. It's a kind of fusion between what we are biologically and what it can be digitally. So I think the faster we embrace that, it's like, for me, I never separate myself from nature. We are part of nature. So the faster we embrace that, the more we can see that forthcoming. And when I talk about simulation, it means that we can simulate evolution as well. So maybe for the first time, we can participate to that rather than just to sit and wait.
So you're very optimistic on the future and AI and humanity.
I guess you cannot be entrepreneur if you're not optimistic in general. But yes, I'm absolutely, I embrace it 200%, yeah.
Okay, well, Duncan, maybe you can flip the coin now.
I'll take the other side of that.
I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right. As an entrepreneur, you've got to be very optimistic. I think every big technology shift scares us. It probably under-delivers in the short term, over-delivers in the long term, and by the time it over-delivers, we're much more comfortable with it. I think that's the space we're in at the moment. Every technology change is more impactful. If you look going all the way back to the printing press or whatever, everything is more impactful. But I think our kids will just think of this like we think of mobile.
Rayne?
Sure, I will play devil's advocate. The Fermi paradox comes to mind. The paradox being, statistically, there should be all of this intelligent life out there. Where are they? Is there a filtering event that occurs? Is this our filtering event? So this is a very, very disruptive, explosive technology. If it advances faster than we can comprehend, that just seems to be an issue that we really have to put some time and thought into. And being in the financial service business, where we are specifically bad at thinking about long-term incentives, and you can talk about it in climate, that this is not what we do well. We do not think about what are the ramifications 10, 100, 1,000 years out. So I really think that we have to be very careful about how we think about these things and really address them seriously. I don't know how it's going to go, but I am optimistic generally.
Okay, good. So Aaron, you're the element that it's actually between the lunch. So, and then people wanted to leave and see if there's any food left. So, but please.
Yeah, I'll be real quick here. So focusing in on the capital markets, I don't know about AI taking over the world, but I will say that as this decision-making becomes more automated and reliant on massive amounts of data, that automation can reach a point where, you mentioned with what's happening with the dealers, where when things do break down, the resulting outcome can be pretty catastrophic from a financial perspective. That would be my sort of concern.
Okay, so it's like 2.5 stars. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, Manuel. And then we'll go to the next element, which is lunch, and then we'll come back. Thank you very much.